Chapter 2, The Phenomenon of Uprooting by Lisa Chapman, Val King, Nicole Brotzman, and Corey Costa. Understanding the silent stage. Understanding the silent stage. One characteristic that appears to be shared by all immigrant children, regardless of nationality, economic status, or family stability, is the silent stage. In this stage, the children experience the school culture as different from their own, and their inability to communicate with peers is caused by a language or cultural difference. In the silent stage, immigrant children appear to withdraw or even appear terrified. Often they are held back by their emotions or fear, even though they want to blend in with other children. This stage may last for months, when a child feels safe in the environment, or years if the child finds no connection. The silent stage doesn't need to be a negative experience. ELLs need time to listen to others talk, to digest what they hear, to develop receptive vocabulary, and to observe their classmates' interactions. During the silent stage, it does not mean students are not learning. They may understand what is being said, but they are not ready to talk about it. The uprooting experience.
In the uprooting experience, survival instincts are awakened. When a child is uprooted from all signs of the familiar and is transported to the unfamiliar, he or she may experience some shock.
Culture shock.
Culture shock occurs for the ELL student by the anxiety that results from losing all familiar signs and symbols of social intercourse. Since each culture has subtle signs, losing these cues produces strain, uneasiness, and sometimes emotional maladjustment. Adults often experience culture shock, but typically have age, experience, and some ability in knowing that it takes what it takes to get over the disorientation, but the child often feels helpless.
There is no way that I could try to make things better for myself. It's hard just feeling bad.
Mixed emotions.
A child is told that they will be moving is what occurs during the first stages of uprooting. Some children have time to adjust to that thought, while others are told the day before they are moving. Initially, the child will feel excitement or fear about the journey. Excitement about what is to come and fear about leaving what is known, friends, family, and neighborhood. Especially when the plans to move is sudden, there is little time to deal with feeling as transportation, leaving arrangements, etc. take up most of the preparation time.
I knew for 2 years that my family was planning to go to the United States. I came home from a fiesta late one night and saw my mother packing. She said that papers finally came in and we were leaving the next morning. We packed until early morning. That was confusing and sad because I never really got to say goodbye to my friends.
The stages of uprooting.
Stage 1. Being told we are moving. Sometimes the students may not find out until the day before that they are moving. First, they may feel excitement, then fear about the journey. They are often sad to leave their friends and family. There is generally not much time for them to deal with their feelings.
Stage 2. Excitement or fear in the adventure of the journey. In the second stage of a child is on a train, car, plane, boat, camel, or even on foot, most often with their parents and or siblings. It is often a long trip where the child gets to experience new adventures on the way. If the child comes from a foreign country, they may start to feel anxiety or fear. They may also potentially be in shock or trauma if they have been separated from their parents in this move.
Stage 3, curiosity. This stage is when the child arrives in the new country. Many times homes are ready through relatives, but often overcrowded. The child does gain emotional support from being able to communicate with so many relatives. Once they settle down, the transplant begins.
Stage 4, culture shock, depression, and confusion. The child is now separated from the warmth of their family and into school. If they do not speak the language, they will likely experience a degree of culture shock and enter the silent stage.
Stage 5, Assimilation or Acculturation. In this stage, the child faces pressure to assimilate to the new culture. They may attempt to blend in and be liked by their peers, often denying their own culture as if it never existed. This is a crucial stage.
Stage 6, in the mainstream. In this stage, ready or not, the child is in the mainstream. Children that are well adjusted accepted both their past and their present.
Understanding the immigrant child's inner world.
In order to get a deeper knowledge of how we can better accommodate our ESOL students that enter our classroom, we must first understand that the inner world is the deeper area within the child that can be defined as a truth within, whether or not that truth has any basis in reality, or simply what the child feels and believes. There are 3 key factors that can impact how an immigrant child delves into their inner world. These factors include isolation, exhaustion, and loneliness.
Isolation. This may be presented in various ways within each immigrant student based on where they originated from. Persons who feel it is necessary to keep such a fundamental part of their being concealed from the society they live in or are isolated at the very root of their being, no matter how sociable they may appear to others.
Some immigration students can feel isolated because we are, as teachers, are unaware of their cultural customs and beliefs, being different in comparison to our own.
IGOA states and brings to light some significant differences on how education overall is viewed and set up over in China to how we are in the United States. She informs the reader, I relate this story not to characterize Chinese education on the basis of one visit, but to share my reflections then and my desire to understand the environment Alice may have come from and the difficulty she would have been experiencing at a school such as ours, where schoolyard cultural conflicts with a daily occurrence.
Teachers need to become more aware of their immigrant students' barriers, such as when a student would prefer to only talk to one person and disregarding the rest of the class.
Exhaustion. What student doesn't feel exhaustion from learning a ton of new materials? In this phase, keep in mind that students who are from other countries suffer from this twice as much as a native student who may have moved within the United States. In school, these immigrant students portrayed the creation of their own film strips, but they had constant feelings of tiredness from having to pay so much attention to the language and images of the new country. Igora mentions that when reading these film strips, the impression that transpired was not of fright or depression, but expressive of how different and strange the new surroundings was, that nothing made sense anymore. Nothing was as expected.
Loneliness is the inability to be touched with oneself, a feeling of disconnectedness. Taking their culture into account is critical in the sense that we Americans perceive as disrespectful might be the complete opposite where they are from.
Contributing factors of loneliness could include strange new place, no friends, cannot communicate, language barrier, beliefs/customs, and misinterpreted body language.
The phenomenon of uprooting is based upon the student traveling to a new country, usually with their family. There are several stages a child can go through, either simultaneously or varying degrees. Depending upon the circumstances of the move, many feelings can arise, including fear, anxiety, or excitement of adventure in learning a new language and understanding new culture. Assimilating to American schools and culture can be daunting both for the student and for the teacher trying to help the student connect both home and school life.
The most interesting story described within this section was on page 59, where the Samoan culture is described as different. Throwing a child out of the house is not as serious to Samoans as to Americans, because unlike the nuclear families in the United States, Samoans have large extended families, and there are always some next of kin nearby, even here in the United States. For a child to be sent out of the house provides a cooling off period for the parents and lets the child avoid constant nagging. The message merely means this is not a good idea to be around this set of adults for a while. There is no shame, no stigma for the child to have to move in with an aunt or uncle because of the Samoan extended family culture. The children have lots of mothers and fathers. Children are free and actually do move around to different households and still feel loved by their parents.
One recommendation of a teacher is to allow the students to create film strips as an outlet. The student is given the opportunity to write and illustrate a short story. He or she then tapes him or herself reading the story. Next, they choose music to accompany their work. Last, they work with their peers to contribute sound effects to go along with the actions. In the classroom, this provided a dual opportunity for children to be introverted and hide behind the tape dialogue, and yet allow others to see them through the images and words that they created. With respect for each individual story came a respect for the child's roots.
The major emotions most often noticed were unfortunately the negative ones such as isolation, exhaustion, and loneliness. Isolation was described by Alice. She kept her Chinese name concealed, therefore she was very isolated, as this a fundamental part of Chinese culture. Even though she worked with peers during the day, she still called herself Alice.
Exhaustion was best described by Cindy. In her film strip, she explained that being in new surroundings and having to translate all written and verbal language made her tired. She was having to keep up in a school environment, taking care of even the most basic needs that are taken for granted because her peers better understood the native spoken language.
Loneliness was depicted by Rosario. This student explained that in his The Lonely Bear film strip, that a new student might feel lonely because they are unable to communicate with others, either verbally or in written language. Therefore, their interaction with peers and adults is less than others and leads to frustration. These may have all been exhibited differently, but often lead to silence during the uprooting stages. Through film strips, children were able to express these emotions.